Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats at chess.com. I'm here with a game submitted by Amos. I'm doing one game that anybody submits. I'm hoping they give me their best game, but actually I'm getting a lot of games where they need help in, and in some respects these are better because I can offer a lot of useful suggestions. Now, this game was played turn-based game, online postal chess, so to speak, of a time control of 1 day a move. Now that's a little quick, but still, it's just a little bit too quick. I had one game on that control and I didn't like it at all. You're always flirting with disaster that your flag's going to hang. You know, you're going to lose on time, and I think it's a good, decent game because to share, because White struggles here, and we're all going to get games where we just don't have it. We don't have a great position. We just can't seem to come up with anything on the board, and we're struggling. And if our opponent doesn't follow through correctly, sometimes we can get off the hook, and that's what happens here. Amos struggles for a good portion of the opening and into the middle game, and we'll discuss that as we get there. So I think this is highly instructive because it just shows what you can do. You want to try to hang on, and we'll see how this game goes. White just struggles, and yet he maintains a decent game, and we'll see how it unfolds. Okay, now this is nothing wrong with knight f3, but on c5 I think White misses a good opportunity here. I think the best move is just support the pawn center with c3, and Black may try to get active with queen b6 and maybe knight c6 or something, but White has resources. He shouldn't have to fear this, and this pawn on c, even if Black exchanges and tries to counter on d5 or d4, White has ample resources, and they're beyond the scope of this text. Knight c3 in principle looks good. It develops a piece, but the way this transpires following the next move, White kind of gets himself in a little bit of a mess here, and we'll see how it works. And here I think White missed a better move, d5, and I'll just show that quickly. Knight d4, well, White can ignore it. He can ignore the knight. He can just develop his bishop. He can put it on d3, on c4. White could even take this knight and maybe have some counterplay on the pawn on d4. Black has resources. He could maybe try knight f6 or queen b6, and it's beyond the scope of this video. But what White does, it just kind of gets himself. He just gets himself a poor position after this move, and we'll see why. Oh, he didn't play that. He played knight e2, and what's wrong with knight e2? Okay. The main problem with a move like knight e2 is it shuts this bishop in. Okay, this bishop needs to develop. All right, it needs to develop so the white king can castle. Get the bishop developed, castle the king, get the other bishop developed, move the queen off the back rank, and the rooks are connected. Then get the rooks into play. You do that, the good moves are waiting to be found. Okay, so many games happen. I'm going to be posting. I played some live games today, and all I did was develop. I didn't do anything special, and all of a sudden, based on how my opponent played, all these good moves are waiting to be found. But when you play a position like this, you just can't find good moves because they're not there. Okay, so it moves a piece a second time, and it shuts in this bishop. Now, Black missed an ideal move here. What he does is okay, but Black had a really strong move here, and that's d5, striking right in the center. This puts White in a bit of a quandary. How's White to continue? Here he's shut his bishop in. What's he do? There is first off, there's the threat on e4. Okay, there's an immediate threat on e4, and that also gains a tempo. So let's just discuss this for a moment. What can White do? If he plays e5, that e5 pawn is going to be exposed. It's going to be undermined. Pawn takes, and black's going to win that pawn, it looks like. If white can't stop and guard the pawn with knight g3 or even back coming back to knight c3, because then d4 is going to hang. So this really only leaves one more move, and that's to take care. Now suddenly the black queen is developed. Now what does white do now? Black is ready to develop his queen bishop. He's ready to develop his king knight. He's threatening to take on d4. Knight takes, pawn takes, whatever. There's good moves waiting to happen for white, for black here. So what does white do? Attack the queen? Well, he can, but let's just look at it. Okay, let's try this square. Check. Okay, we're going to give a check here just to gain a tempo. Now what does white do? Well, he's got to break the check. You probably don't want to trade queens. Let's get this guy developed. Okay. Now if anything, black can just come in and grab this pawn. And what does white have to show here? There's a threat of knight takes c2 check. Okay. If you take with the knight, you gotta, this you can take with the pawn. You can take with the bishop. Let's take with the pawn. Now white castles. He gets his king to safety. But look at the price white's paid. He's down a pawn. He's got a little bit of development for it. There's a threat of a check on b5, but that shouldn't be too much of a nuisance. I think black has full compensation for the pawn here. I mean, white doesn't have enough compensation for the pawn. Usually you need 3 tempos to compensation for a pawn. White has a nuisance threat of bishop b5 check coming. Black can deal with that a number of ways. You probably don't want to play bishop d7 because of bishop f3, but black can play knight f6 and on bishop b5 check bring the bishop up, and black can probably even and I like that move. Black can probably even afford to play a6 here, and I don't think white has enough compensation. So a6, if bishop f3, we'll just put the queen and put it on e5. If anything else, knight d3, queen d6, bishop f4 is met by e5, and we pin things. I mean, this is just a possible line, but I don't think black has anything to worry about in this position. Black's not threatening to take on f4, but black's going to get developed here momentarily. White's got some activity here, but and this line I just showed real quick. How did I see it so quick? Well, I just made developing moves. Okay, that's all I did. That's how you analyze. You try to play moves that, when you analyze a position, try to make it moves that develop a piece. Okay, and have a threat. So knight e2 did that, and then I played queen check. I broke the check, and you don't have to take the pawn. That's another wonderful thing about the black position. And black could even take with the pawn here instead of taking with the knight. That's a whole new line. And again, going into all these tangents is beyond the scope of this video. The advantage of taking with the pawn is that white won't have this nuisance check. So we steal the pawn here. Then when white castles, no longer threatening a check here, and black can just go about his business and get developed. I mean, he even has knight h6 as an option, with the idea of coming into f5 and keeping control over d4, holding on to that pawn, and black will eventually convert that pawn. So I'm not doing anything special to find these moves. I'm just looking at squares. It's natural to want to come to f6, but that might take away a defender. h6 is perfectly good, because then suddenly we get into play on f5, and that's a good knight to have on f5. And then black's going to castle and be up a full pawn. I don't think white has enough. Oh, wait a minute. one move here. Well, let's see. White's threatening to win the queen. Interesting. So black's got to deal with that. Okay, there's a threat to win the queen. Let's see. Well, we can get out of that pretty easy. How about bishop g4? Now on bishop d3. See, maybe this doesn't save it. Okay, we take with the pawn, and then we have voila. We have a flight square, queen e5. Okay, so I've saved the queen. But anything can come up, and you only find this stuff by looking at possibilities. Brute force, you just kind of go through and look at moves and try to cover all the bases. And essentially what you're doing is you're doing what a computer does. Computer looks at everything in microseconds. But it also examines continuations like a3 followed by a6, rook a2. Horrible moves that a human wouldn't play. So we can, being humans, we can concentrate on what's important and find the tactics. Now, if there's a flaw in this, your opponent will show you. How do you find that there's a flaw in this? Well, you sit and you analyze. You check these positions out. You go into detail, and you get as many of these lines covered as you can. And as long as you cover all the lines, there's a good chance, and you're careful, there's a good chance you're going to be fine. And white just basically allowed black too much, and black had plenty of potential in this position with d5, and he didn't even see it. Now, what he does is fine, but it kind of helped white out a little bit. Okay. So white's struggles are not over yet. Okay, d6. Now, again, the focus has to be on development. White stops and makes a pawn move. You don't have time for that. It's time to develop a piece, okay? You got to get castled as quickly as possible. Bishop e2, bishop b5, if anything, bishop c4. I mean, each one has pluses and minuses. Bishop e2 is going to be safe and solid. Black isn't threatening anything, but you've got to get developed. So c3, it supports the knight on d4, but the knight was already supported. It was supported by the queen, and it was supported by the knight on f3. Black wasn't threatening anything yet. Wait and see black's move. Okay, if it's black, whoops, I want to just illustrate. If it's black's move in this position, which it isn't, maybe black can do some nuisance pinning here. But even then, white should have resources against that. Should be able to handle that. But the point is it's white's move, and just simply developing would have solved his problem. Bishop e2, if bishop g4, just castle, and if bishop takes f3, you take back with the knight, and the knight on d4 is not loose. So you want to develop your pieces. Okay, so now knight f6. Now there's this threat on this e4 pawn that white ignores, and white comes up here with more pressure. And it's kind of interesting. Black can snatch that pawn here, and he didn't. I'll just show you real quick. Knight takes. Okay, now suppose you take here. Let's see. How are we going to do this? I was looking at this. If pawn takes, if pawn takes, see, white could play bishop takes here, but black has an adequate move, I think knight c5, and if queen takes e4, black can take this, and he's picked off the bishop pair. Well, black's going to get the bishop pair anyways. So again, there's a lot of variations in here, but black could have snatched that pawn. So, bishop takes. Okay, let's see. You're on the knight. You're on the bishop. Okay, knight c5. Let's see. Well, this is okay. I don't know. I'm trying to remember this line. Black doesn't win a pawn here, but black has full equality. In some respects, he's a little better because these two pawns are on dark squares. White's going to have a little trouble with them. Black's got a couple of active open files half-open files to play on. But anyway, there's more to it, but it kind of gets beyond the scope of this video. But knight takes e4 was a better move, but still there's nothing wrong with how black handles this. Yeah, okay. He brings the queen back, so now there's a loss of tempo. White still hasn't castled. Notice that white has a queen, rook, and queen bishop that need to get in the game, and they're going to stay unmoved for a long time. Okay, now black is just getting happily developed. Now, white makes an unprovoked exchange here. He didn't have to. This was a perfect time to develop by castling or bring out the queen's bishop. But he makes an exchange here, and this kind of helps black a little bit. Now there's a tempo on the bishop. Now, so white's made an exchange, and because there's a tempo on his bishop, he's had to safeguard it, and he still's not castled. Black has a chance to improve his position. And black chooses to bolster his center. This is a perfectly good move. A free tempo that black got. Now white castles. He could have been castled already. And any time black has this formation out of a Sicilian defense, because that's in effect what this is, black's achieved full equality and maybe even has more. So boom, here comes another there's another tempo that black has. And I think it would have been okay to take with this pawn, simply because of the open lines the half-open files is alluding to. It's true white has a queenside pawn majority, but black has a lot of activity and white's not developed. He's going to lose another tempo with his bishop, and then we swing a rook over to the B file or the C file, and black's happy as a clam. Either rook AB8 or rook FC8, and black's doing well. But taking with this pawn is not bad. Again, there's a tempo. Now let's just take stock. White has two pieces not developed. His queen rook and his queen bishop. Black only has one piece not developed, his queen rook, and his black's move. A perfectly good move would be to play rook FE8, rook AE8, or rook B8, rook AB8. Either one's fine. But black's ahead in development. He can afford to make a move like this. Now, I don't necessarily like it. Black's got a better position. Why should black be seeking exchanges? Because this is going to start seeking some exchanges here in a moment, although it works out for him. Usually when you have a little bit of a development advantage, avoid exchanges, because your pieces will be the more dominant ones, and they can do more things when you have more of them. That's just a general rule. If you're up in development, don't trade pieces. That helps your opponent get out of trouble. There's some old maxims. They say, if you're ahead in material, trade pieces, not pawns. If you're behind in material, trade pawns, not pieces. Well, here, if you're ahead in development, don't trade anything. It's that simple. Don't trade pawns, don't trade pieces. Keep them on the board. Okay? If you're behind in development, you have to be careful about trading pieces, because if you make exchanges that improve the position of your opponent's pieces, you're going down fast. And I've covered that in a lot of videos. Don't make exchanges that improve the position of your opponent's pieces. Now, here's an unforced error on white's part. I guess he has visions that somehow, if black deflects this knight, there's a mate. Well, my question is, how's black going to deflect that knight? The answer is he isn't. Okay? White needs to develop. Okay? This guy, he's still sitting there. You got to get him out. Well, it doesn't have a lot of good squares, but actually you can find one. How about bishop g5? Okay? Just going to be a little redeployment. We hope that black plays h6, drives it where we want to go, because we're going to back it up to h4 and then park it on g3 and chase your queen out of there. So bishop g5 connects the rooks. It's a perfectly good move. h3 is just a wasted move. And now white would probably do well to exchange, okay, or go back to my plan. Well, you got to watch out for the double pawn. You don't want double pawns. So white starts swimming a little bit here. he should probably take the knight. That's why I think this was a mistake on Black's part to try to offer exchanges. White should probably take on e5, and Black doesn't have much to show for it. But White doesn't. He uses his queen as a defensive piece, avoiding the doubled pawns. And this white queen starts swimming, treading water for the next several moves. We'll see what I mean. Because now this just hands Black the bishop pair. White didn't have to allow that. Okay. Now Black gains another tempo, improves the position of his light squared bishop. And now look at this. Queen d2. White's struggling again. Earlier we shut the king bishop in. Now we've shut the queen bishop in. When are these guys getting in the game? You know. But Black's kind of been his own worst enemy here. He's picked up the bishop pair, but he's been trading pieces. Black doesn't really have a whole lot going here because the pieces have been exchanged and his rooks aren't in the game yet. It's time to get the rooks in the game. So Black's next move is it just befuddles me what he's trying to do. F6. It makes no sense. What is Black doing? Okay, you've just shut in your bishop. You know, the bishop doesn't have a whole lot of scope, but it might. It might soon enough. Okay, keep this diagonal open. Think of some long-range things. I mean, long range. Maybe get down to the ending. This is a useful bishop. Okay, suppose that pawn runs down to a3. Suddenly the defender of c3 is undermined. Okay, that pawn could become weak. With these bishops raking the queen side, you want those Black wants those diagonals open. Now White's the one looking for help here. He's just got some help, and he plays. I guess it's a decent move. He plays queen d4. He takes advantage of the fact that Black has given him this square. Okay, so Black comes up with this move, bishop e4, and White starts swimming again. The queen comes back and guards it. Now this bishop is shut in again. It has one square to connect the rooks. Maybe it would have been better for White to try knight h2. Okay, now doesn't have a lot of future there. Black could play f5, tempoing the queen and keeping the knight out of g4. That could very well happen. That'd probably be a good move. Knight e2 chases the bishop, but White goes and protects it, and it turns out it works out. And now Black is kind of swimming a little bit. Why aren't his rooks in the game? You know, the thing that's saving White is Black hasn't brought his rooks into play. But White continues to swim a little bit here. Knight d4, tread water. Now he gets the rooks in. White does the same. But still, we're on move 23, and White's giving odds of a rook and a bishop. Black's giving odds of a rook. Okay, so Black breaks with c5, and it's good to drive that knight away. But it'd be so much better if that rook was in play first, because more things start coming open. More possibilities open up. Okay, so c5. Now the knight's not on a particularly good square. Now Black misses a really good move here. And maybe it doesn't look obvious, but here I'll just show it to you. Maybe it does look obvious. Some people might say, no, I don't want to give up my queen for I don't give up two rooks for the queen. Well, Black is crushing in this position. Okay. Now the rook has to come back here. Now, since White has not developed his queen side, and his knight is out of play, Black's going to rake in this game real quick. Okay, just bring the bishop back. How's White going to get developed? Okay, maybe you have bishop d2. Suddenly this Black position just starts opening up. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities here. H3 is weak. We can make a target out of that. with bishop f5. I want to get this bishop in the game. One way to do it is even sacrifice this pawn and get the bishop in here. f5 might be a little premature, but no, it's okay. f5's good. If white plays f3, this queen check is deadly. White doesn't have any resources, so this just activates the f5 activates the other bishop. Now we're getting ready to chase that rook out of there. White's in serious trouble here. Okay, but anyway, Black didn't play it. Instead he found a different discovery, a timid one, guarding the rook. So it's obvious he didn't want to give it up, but he just didn't look at the position. I don't know how much time these guys spend on it, but some of these online games, you guys are playing blitz chess. You can't do it. You've got to sit down and analyze move by move. You do this, if you sit and work on these games, I promise you, your rating will go up 200 points, and then you get to play higher rated players that play better, and you're going to learn from them. This is all in video lesson 1. Get rid of the mistakes that are keeping your rating down. Your rating, stop losing games the silly way you're losing them. Your rating goes up. You get in a team match, you're on a higher board. Now you're playing a better player, and yeah, he could beat you, but you're going to learn from playing him. How do you think? Why are grandmasters grandmasters? Because they played other grandmasters, and they got experience playing against them. It works throughout the rating classes, whether you're rated 800, 1200, or 1500, whatever. It's all pointed out in lesson 1. Find your mistakes, cut them out, win your games that you used to lose. Your rating goes up. How do you do that? You analyze. You be careful and you take these things seriously. You do that, your chess will improve. Okay, so now there's the queen blocking the bishop once again. Now Black kind of helps White out here. Black didn't have to take on e1. Okay, this is a perfect. Let White take. Let's let White take and trade off an active rook for a passive rook. Okay, why should Black trade off his active rook and open up the diagonal for this bishop? Yeah, he gets a tempo on the queen, but what's good here? Well, do we want to play f5? It might hang g5. No, it doesn't. It doesn't because of the back rank problems. f5 is perfectly good here. Obviously, if rook takes e8, rook takes e8, queen takes g5, rook e1 is checkmate. So f5 was a good move. Get those pawns rolling. Open up this position. So Black made a mistake. White can breathe a little easier. Yeah, he gets a tempo. And then White's is dancing carefully here. He's got to watch out for the pins. But at least finally, on move 27, the bishop has developed. Okay, so now c5 or c4. Now d4 looks like the natural square, but it's still got some problems. f5 is coming, and there's a possible pins with f4, so the queen's going to have to get off that diagonal. But c5, it turns out, works out. It's not the move I would have immediately thought. d4 is a natural square, but there it is, f5. And now the threat's f4, winning a piece, so White has to dance with his queen, but at least he's got his bishop out. And f4. And I think Black's played a little too quickly here because now White's got able to oppose bishops. So Black keeps the bishop on with a threat. White gets out of there. And now White's almost caught up in development, and the game is becoming a little more equal. And what Black does, I think, makes it too equal. Black's got the better position. Okay, he's got the bishop for the knight. Black needs to just consolidate, play a move like queen e6, queen d7. I'm not too worried about the pawn on a7. I don't know, Black, that white knight on b4 is just so out of play. But he takes, and this allows the opposite colored bishops. Now, here's a good rule of thumb. I've mentioned before. Opposite colored bishop games are not drawn when there's rooks and queens on the board. In effect, the attacking side is a piece ahead. Now, all of a sudden, white is the attacking side here. I think white now has the better position, and we'll illustrate here in a moment. Okay. To me, white has a perfectly good move here that he doesn't play. What's wrong with bishop c3? Remember what I said? The attacking side is a piece ahead. The idea is to put the queen on d4 and threaten to harass that king. What does black do against this? Okay? Well, he can play bishop d3 and stop things. But you know what? We're going to get there. We're going to get to d4 here soon enough. I'll play f3. Okay? Now what's... oh, wait. No. Rook e2. Darn it. Okay. See, I don't rehearse these things. Bishop d... Oh, gosh. It looks so inviting to play that. Bishop d3 is a good move. Because it threatens... Okay. Oh, white had to trade rooks. Whoops. White played rook e1. But so I was mistaken there. But here black is stopping to safeguard a pawn. Let it sit. Let white take it. And then come over here and get the rook active. So white takes. That puts black on the open file. And here's another possibility to play bishop c3 and try to get the bishop queen to d4. But he gets it off that diagonal. That was a perfectly good diagonal. So here, bishop c3, what does black do? You know, you go back to this idea. I'm still going to get on that diagonal. Yeah, you can bring your queen down to e2, and we'll probably go into a drawn position. But you know, white should be happy to get a draw after the way he struggled in this game. But anyway, takes, and now bishop c5. He got off there. And then black shows his intention, bishop d3. Now white's kind of working his way onto that diagonal anyway. This might have been an opportunity to play bishop d4 now. And the plan is to play bishop h8. Maybe we can get a checkmate in. White's bishop is better here. But this is kind of like just trades off stuff. And now black gets a good move. He's able to mess up the white pawn structure. And the queen comes back again with a threat. Black covers. And white offers a queen trade. White didn't have to offer the queen trade. As I was saying, is let black initiate the queen trade. Get on that long diagonal. And now the game should be a draw. Okay, it should be. But, you know, somebody moved too quick here, so we'll see. Okay, essentially, white should be happy he got this far. You know, he was in trouble now. Suddenly, okay, black missed another good move here. Bishop c2, you're still playing b5. Okay, never mind. Okay, b5. Now, white gets a pass pawn, but black has one too, and both pawns are covered. And the game is a draw, but one side's going to get a little carried away here. We'll see here in a minute. And it costs the whole game. So white's won a pawn, but the game should still be a draw. But white's got all the chances now. That f-pawn looks kind of potent. So white gets ready to advance it. And probably there's nothing wrong with playing f4 right now, but let's see, f4. What do you do? King d4, f5, push, f6. White's going to win. Well, black's got counterplay. Anyway, he brought the king over, blocking the path of the pawn. Now he gets it going. And I think it's this point that, coming up one more move, it's at this point that black fumbles the game away. All black needs to do is just take that pawn. Well, he can't take it on f4. Just bring the king back. White can't make progress. It's long and involved. But he brings the king in, and suddenly these pawns become too dangerous. And now the white bishop has that long diagonal down to h6. If black chases it, white will just park the bishop down there, and the black king is too far away from all the pawns. And there it goes, and basically black has no defense. Now he just moves one, and you take it, and the other one queens. So somebody moved too quick, but white did the best he could with what he had. And why did he have these struggles? It all goes back to the opening. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. It all goes back to the opening. This choice of knight e2, okay, and the choice of knight c3. Knight e2 was just didn't work out. d5, let him play here. You don't have to take on f3. Put some pressure on d4. What's he going to do? W your pawns? So, black has nothing developed. White has the bishop pair. This is fine for white. So, white just kind of got in trouble by not getting his development completed. But he hung in there and was resilient. And black clearly had a lot of better moves at his disposal, but black had the better moves at his disposal because white kind of played passively, and black just didn't follow up with some better moves. Missing bishop takes g2 was a clear advantage for black. But anyway, can't expect everybody to play perfect chess. I mean, anyone that's seen my videos in the Rat Pack knows how horrible I was when I was new. It's learning. You're not going to sit down and play like a master or an expert the first games. There's reasons why you're rated 1700, but the potential to move up is there, and you're going to get there by playing stronger players. So you got to win these games like you did here, but don't win them the hard way. Win them by developing, and things will go so much easier for you. Okay. Thanks so much for taking the time to look at this. I hope it was instructive. Resilient play on white's part. He found the moves when they counted the most. And thanks again for your time. Take care.